In 1992, we got a movie called Beethoven. It's about a mischievous Saint Bernard. When I was a kid, I loved that movie a lot, and much like lots of kids' movies from that era, it spawned way too many sequels, and even an animated series I had no idea even existed until I started working on this video. In 1993, the first sequel came out, where Beethoven fell in love, had puppies, all that fun stuff. For some reason, somebody out there saw this movie coming out and were like, hey, let's make a Super Nintendo game based on this. And as such, they did. The first thing upon starting the game up is that it's by High Tech Expressions, who made some games I really enjoyed. More on that later. The text in the game's title has a silly looking handwritten feel that I don't particularly understand. For the first level, you have to rescue Chubby in a neighborhood setting where everything is trying to kill you. Cats, fences, hunters, skaters, apples, everything hurts you. Your only method of attacking is a bark attack that can go further if you hold down the button, or if Beethoven gets wet you can shake the water off and kill everything off screen. The controls are very sluggish and clumsy, but is that really surprising for a platformer game starring a large dog? The jumping mechanics are pretty much what I would expect from a Saint Bernard, but at the same time it doesn't really work in a game where platforming is required. The enemies in this game are placed in the most annoying of places, and they take multiple hits to kill. I think this game would have been drastically improved if you could just at least kill the enemies with one hit. You get to the end of the stage, and Chubby's on the roof for some reason. The second stage is very similar to the first, except in this case you have to carry Chubby with your mouth, which adds a little bit of challenge, because you have to drop the puppy to attack oncoming enemies. It'd be a pretty neat idea if the enemies weren't placed randomly and took a million hits to kill. The game is truly not a walk in the park, except for these next two stages, because they take place in a park, but they're still very challenging. The game continues to have these terribly placed enemies. There's fire pits and squirrels that throw acorns at you. The platforms sometimes don't like to cooperate, and it feels like they're trying to trap you into getting hit at times. I can't even get through the second set of levels, so I think it's time for me to get bad and cheat my way through with infinite lives. After doing infinite lives, I at least got to the second part, where it continues to be an annoyance. Even cheating in this game, it took far more attempts than I care to admit. You rescue Tchaikovsky in the third set of stages. This set of levels takes place at a kennel, which looks more like a warehouse that happens to have a few angry dogs running around in it. Why are those hunters in a kennel? That's a bit odd. The placement of the enemies is even worse than before, and they even trick you with falling platforms. It's pretty much trial and error at this point. And I don't see how you can progress through this game without getting hit. Some sections I genuinely feel you need the damage boost to get past, and I think that's a huge flaw. At this point, I realized that infinite lives was not enough, and I had to go even further with infinite health as well. Even with infinite health, this stage is still very difficult due to the poor platforming. Eventually the route branches out and you think either one would be okay, but the bottom one flat out takes you to a dead end, and it teases you with the puppy being right at the top of the platform you run into. Sometimes Beethoven will freeze when trying to jump platforms. Usually it's when getting hit by an enemy, but sometimes he'll just randomly freeze due to the poor design of the game. I was cheating my butt off, and the stage still took forever to beat. The second level of the kennel was still a mess, but at least the crates looked like dog crates, kind of. For the fourth set of stages, which is the final set, you have to rescue Dolly. This one is based in the mountains, which is actually kind of relevant to the movie, because the mountains are in the movie. The hunters now have fancy mustaches for some reason. You murder bald eagles. Pretty sure that's illegal. The platform is even worse than the last stage, and it requires even more precision. Something that your clunky character doesn't particularly have. Sometimes you just fall through platforms. Those mudslide things are a huge pain too. On the plus side, the stage feels shorter than the rest of the stages, and it's a nice breath of fresh air. Stage 2 is taking the puppy to his mother, as you would have predicted. I hope this game ends in a boss fight based on that scene where Beethoven slams the guy on the beefus with a branch. The scenery kind of reminds me of the Lion King game, which is pretty nice. It looks good. Thankfully, it's pretty short in comparison to the earlier levels. After Dolly has been reunited with her mother, you get the greatest finishing screen of any game ever made. Hooray, you saved the puppies! The game ends with credits around these really badly drawn pictures of the dogs. Not sure why they're even there. Maybe one of the puppies drew it somehow? Now that would be impressive. So not that it's at all surprising, but Beethoven is certainly a bad egg. It's unnecessarily difficult, but not due to actual damage, but due to a handicap that's due to poor level design, enemy placement, and all that. It certainly looks nice, but appearance isn't everything. I don't think that anyone really picked this game up in 1993 being like, oh, this is gonna be a fun Beethoven game. Not even fans of the movies. I like the movies, but this game doesn't do it justice. But I say that because a game based on it probably would have been better off not even existing. It's definitely one of the harder Super Nintendo games I played. Why are people making all these torturous Super Mario World hacks when they could really torture their friends by creating Kaizo Beethoven instead? So anyways, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you dig it, like if you dig it. See you next time.